How do we avoid doing things we'll regret? Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? I'm Thomas, and welcome to my channel. I do educational videos on all kinds of different subjects. Uh, right now, I've been focusing on the Tree of Life, and mainly because I think it's a great tool for use in your life holistically, and it helps you not only with the knowledge, with the understanding that it brings or understanding that it brings uh, just on its own, but also because it is an organizing factor that helps you to better understand all of the other stuff that you've learned or that you're learning. In addition to that, it helps you in terms of your self-defense against some of these evil Kabbalists out there who are using this same diagram against you. You need to be able to understand the tools of the trade, um, tools of the enemy, so that you can defend yourself against it. So when we look at the tree, we see here a model, and this is also Tree of Life goes all the way back to ancient Egypt at least, and but it's also the same diagram is also called the Kabbalah. Um, Comes from the ancient Hebrews and is used now by you know probably many of the people in the synagogue of Satan and other nefarious forces that are also in the Europe and America, folks out in Hollywood, and in the Crowley, post-Crowley circles, and Satanists in the uh, Anton LaVey. But anyway, we can learn this and to help defend ourselves. So what you see with the tree is you see that there are 10 circles, and I have many of them colored in here, but they're 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then there is an implied sphere here, and then there is also a 0 above the tree. So that makes a total of 12 different components, 12 different categories, which are generally mapped out to our 12 faculties of consciousness, or 12 abilities of consciousness, 12 phases of consciousness, or modes of consciousness. And briefly, as an introduction, they break down as the 10th sphere. They're called spheres instead of circles. It's a three-dimensional diagram, three-dimensional thing mapped out on a two-dimensional piece of paper. So the 10th sphere is having to do with our survival instinct, fight or flight response, kill or be killed, law of the jungle, also the body, the condition of the body, and the defilements and lusts of the body that kind of work against our life force, Jing. And then as we grow up, just from the very beginning of our life, just until till we begin to leave the house, this is the ninth sphere is our domestic consciousness. The first few years of our lives, we're living in the home, in our crib or our playpen, just right around the house. And we're super receptive, hyper receptivity, or what you call mediumistic trance. We're in a state of just soaking up everything from our environment, and in particular from our caregivers. And we kind of just soak up what they do, and then we learn to imitate that and then memorize it. So whether that's learning how to walk, or learning how to hold a fork, or whatever it is, we're in this very heightened state of receptivity, and we're just trying to learn as much as we possibly can, and we're not even concerned at all with what we're learning, the content of what we're learning, whether it's good or bad or good or evil or anything like that. So the ninth sphere is blind, but it's super receptive. The eighth sphere is kind of similar, but it's where the ninth sphere is out in the domestic sphere. The eighth sphere is out in the real world. So this is like your establishments, your institutions, your expert opinion, and your teachers and your preachers, and they tell you what you're supposed to believe about everything. They tell you what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. They give you the paradigms, they tell you the ideals so that you can fit into this eighth sphere. The eighth sphere is all kind of all encompassing in that it is really where all the resources are. If you want to be rich or whatever, you're gonna have to appeal to the eighth sphere. Even if you want to, even just to survive, you've got to give a little to the eighth sphere. Render unto Caesar. And the eighth sphere, unfortunately, is full of lies. It's a trickster. It's illusory. And so they tell you what you're supposed to believe, but that is not necessarily true. What you're supposed to believe is not necessarily true. And so a lot of times your particular experiences in your own life do not harmonize with what they're telling you that you're supposed to believe. And this is when you get into the dissonance between what you believe deep down because of your own experiences and what you're being told to believe. And many times you end up kind of siding on the other side, siding with them that are telling you what to believe, and discarding your own experience, because the pressure to conform here is so great that you're like, well, everybody else believes this, and so I can't just go on believing what I believe. I must be wrong. My senses must be deceiving me. And while I would admit that, at times your senses can deceive you, I'd say that they're a much better guide than, just a guy in a white lab coat telling you what you're supposed to believe and then mocking you for, researching it yourself, and trying to figure it out for yourself. Oh no, you don't have the training or whatever to figure this out for yourself. You just have to take it from us because we're the experts. See, I've got the white lab coat on. So the eighth sphere is very problematic, but most of the time we end up rationalizing. So those are the kind of the main functions of the eighth sphere. It's the consensus worldview, but it's also our rational faculty, and we use our rational faculty to kind of trick us into accepting this through things like circular reasoning, and also through rationalization and faulty input into our reasoning faculty. So now the seventh sphere, where the eighth sphere is about the real world, the seventh sphere is about the imaginary world. So the seventh sphere is for people who, had a taste of the eighth sphere or a sniff of the eighth sphere, and they smelled a rat. They're like, something's wrong here. Something's wrong with the eighth sphere. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. And they come over here to the seventh sphere and they imagine something better. They imagine a better real world. And they use their tools at their disposal here at the seventh sphere to propose alternatives to the eighth sphere. So in addition to the imagination, they also have their inspiration, they have their intuition, they have their creative spark, and they also have their pleasure principle. And so these different things come into play and help them to propose alternatives to the A-sphere. And these are often in the form of creative offerings or inventions. They come up with a machine that, does a certain task better than some machine that's here at the A-sphere, or a piece of intellectual property, or some artistic endeavor, a song or a poem, a comedy skit, or anything that, proposes alternatives to this A-sphere. Okay, and I guess it's important to emphasize that it's not just a criticism of the A-sphere, it's also an attempt to provide an actual alternative to it. You can, if you're just criticizing the A-sphere, that means that you're most likely in the seventh fractal of the A-sphere, or the seventh aspect of the A-sphere, which is what I call the fake seventh sphere. Because remember, the A-sphere is all about fakery. So within the A-sphere, they've kind of constructed fake or facsimiles of the other spheres. So, a lot of people think they've dropped out of the A-sphere and moved over to the seventh sphere, but they actually are just in the fake seventh sphere. You can see this in the 60s, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll crowd. They thought they were coming up with an alternative, but that doesn't speak to all the people in that movement, but just the people that were kind of hanging on and clinging to the part of the sex, the drugs, and the rock and roll. There were many other people who actually did move over to the seventh sphere and proposed alternatives, but these people were just kind of like along for the ride. And that, the fake seventh sphere is for people who are just along for the ride. Okay, then as we move up, we use our inspiration to push us up the tree to the sixth sphere. And the sixth sphere is the central sphere on the tree. This is where we are actually located, but we seem like we're located all over the place, because the sixth sphere is our free will faculty, and in particular, this is our ability to pay attention. So our attention is a vector. It's got a direction. So even though we're at the sixth sphere, we're pointing it at all kinds of the other spheres. So it kind of seems like we're in these other places, but that's because that's where our attention is focused. And the other aspect of our free will is, in addition to our ability to pay attention, is our ability to make decisions. And so we find ourselves here at the sixth sphere, and we generally are paying attention into this 8, 9, and 10 area, because this is how we grew up. We were born here. We grew up in the home here, and we then came of age here. Trying to work our way into the A-sphere. So this whole triangle here is very comfortable for our lives. This is where everybody, not everybody, but this is where so many other people are located, and this is where we all share experiences. We all have this in common to a certain extent, and so it's very easy to just point our attention at this area. But then when we use our other aspect of free will, our ability to make decisions, we can decide to avert our attention from this area and to point our attention further up the tree toward our more spiritual aspects. And so that's the key thing to do at the sixth sphere. And that in general brings out a lot of fear, because now we're, instead of being in our comfort zone, focused on our comfort zone, we're now focused on the unknown. And the unknown is scary, so it brings out fear. The first thing that we can do to kind of tackle our fear, other than to merely just to stand in its face, which is a major step here at the sixth sphere. But then if we direct our attention at the fifth sphere, we begin to learn a lot more about how things work, and we begin to learn a lot more about being able to deal with fear. So our fifth sphere is our sense of justice. So this is otherwise known as karma, and karma is really the enforcement of the natural law, which is articulated here at the fourth sphere. So the fourth and fifth sphere work together, different sides of the same coin, on the same level, but this is really the kind of the left brain version, and this is the right brain version. And this is, the articulation of the law. This is the enforcement of the law. Karma is enforced based on violence, waste, and violation. So those are the things that karma primarily measures. And karma is basically the process of, as you sow, so shall you reap. What comes around goes around. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so when we act, if we learn to pay attention to our karma gives us feedback on our actions. And here at the sixth sphere, the karma is instantaneous. Now, if our actions are based on ninth sphere kind of things, where they are learned and memorized and basically rehearsed, and then it becomes impossible to really get feedback from our karma, because there's this long time lag between our action and our reaction. It's kind of a circuitous route that the karma takes, and before it gets back to us, and it's very difficult to interpret our karma when we are kind of entangled up in the eighth and ninth spheres. But if we're really in real time, present or paying attention, then we get immediate feedback on our actions, or as John Lennon said, instant karma. And then so when we get feedback from our actions, we can gradually adjust our actions to be more optimal, because we don't want to be getting violent feedback from our violent actions. That hurts us. And so we can say, I don't want this kind of feedback coming back to me, so maybe I should put out something that's a little bit less violent, so I get something less violent coming back to me. And so that's the beginning of us really kind of evolving here. The fourth sphere helps us too, because we are able to kind of tune into how the universe actually operates. And when we see all the interrelationships between things, how everything fits together in this grand symphony, which the Chinese call the Tao, and that we kind of understand the laws of the universe, then we also are able to act accordingly. We recognize that everything kind of fits into a big whole, and that we're not just individual actors that are acting in this meaningless void. So the fourth sphere helps us with that. It gives us a universal perspective. So not only does it give us this universal law that it talks about, and these are this comes back to like the holy books, the theories of everything, any type of media that attempts to describe how everything all fits together. And then also, in addition to the universal law, the fourth sphere is in charge of the universal love, to give seeking nothing in return, and to be able to love our enemies. And then the universal language, all the languages that are innate within us, communication, ways of communicating that are, you know, that are within us, that we all understand. Okay, then we move up to the third sphere, the abyss. And the abyss here is about our psychic powers, in particular, psychic receptivity and psychic heat. Psychic receptivity is our ability to tune in to and recognize omens or synchronicities or coincidences or anomalies that we find in our lives that are actually pointers also that tell us this is something that you should pay attention to. So this is kind of like an induction where we get, the pointer points at us, telling us that you need to point at this. So we can be inducted into paying attention to this. And then the challenge, though, if we recognize the omen, we still need to be able to act upon the omen. And that requires a great deal of courage again, because we have to be able to put ourselves out there. The recommended action for the omen typically means that we have to face a fear. And that's why you have psychic heat. The heat is required to overcome the fear. Okay, then 3, 2, and 1 above the tree are about our divine faculties within: omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. Omnipotence, all-powerful. We tune into this through sound and synchronizing the sound. The second sphere is omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom, our ability to solve problems. We tap into this through really sinking down, calming our mind, being able to kind of bypass all of the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves, but following up on the thoughts. We see the thoughts going by like clouds in the sky. We don't grasp at the thought. That's generally how our thought drift pattern works, is we have a thought and then we follow it and carry it out to its end. That's how really, dreaming and daydreaming both work that way, where we get a thought and then we follow it to its kind of logical conclusion. One thought leads to another, which leads to another, and you get this stream of consciousness. But here at the second sphere, we shut that down so that a thought is just a thought, and it stays there, but it doesn't get followed up. And by doing that, we're able to sink down further and further into our center. And here we're able to actually see our center, and that's wisdom. And that is how we can tap into that through coherent light. But if we can't tap into our wisdom faculty that way, then we need to be able to use a surrogate, because we have to be able to solve problems. And the surrogate to solving, if we haven't developed the skill to shut our thoughts down like that, then we need to use the oracle or the divination system. And so that is, a deck of cards or any type of random chance process that reveals to us this, the solution to problems. Okay, so then the first sphere above the tree is our unifying factor, omnipresence, all present, all at once, eternally. And this factor is about realizing that we can sink all the way into our deepest center and be that center, and recognize that our center is the same as everybody else's center. This is a divine spark within everything. And so this is a unifying factor. And then the above the tree, the 0, is really the nothingness and the mystery of life. So this is a mystery, mainly because the 0 is not part of the universe. The 0 is part of the creator, but not part of the universe. So we don't have direct access to it. Okay, now that is the beginner's version of the Tree of Life. I've developed a slightly more advanced version of fractalizing the tree. So basically placing the Tree of Life on each one of the other spheres, each one of the 12 spheres. So you end up with a 12 by 12 pattern, and that makes 144. That is 144 different fractal faculties or mini faculties. I've compiled a list of these faculties into this guide to the 144 stages of life. That's how I see it. They're dramatic stages, not chronological, but dramatic. And so that's compiled into a list, and I'd be happy to send that out to you for your perusal if you click the link in the description. Now today, as in each day, we're looking at one of those 144 different fractal faculties. And for today, we've got number 22, which is how do we avoid doing things we'll regret? And this is located right here in the ninth sphere. The ninth sphere is, again, about heightened receptivity, mediumistic trance, being blind, but then also being highly receptive, using our memory and our imitation. And then it's the second fractal, or second mini aspect within the ninth sphere. This has to do with wisdom, omniscience, all-knowing, and being able to divine or divinate, to be able to see into the future, or really to anticipate. So number 22 is called Anticipate Remorse. Stage number 22 is about taking our nascent remorse and applying it preemptively to other behavior, so we do not commit the act at all and do not have to feel remorseful. You'll be sorry. The Premonition of Remorse. Teach yourself to check yourself. No time to think about it. We must anticipate beforehand. Feel remorse before we have even committed the act, so we won't do it. Remorse for a transgression must be memorized by the muscles, so then we can anticipate and avoid even doing it at all. So we can avoid the hangover, avoid the indigestion, avoid the food coma, the food fog too. So by the time they get ready to hit us with disease, we're not there anymore. If we must indulge, gross ourselves out, overindulging, eat so much we get stuffed, which makes us feel so bad, maybe we won't want to do it again. Inducing trauma. Or better yet, just practice eating. Don't really do it. Just chew it, taste it, and then spit it out. We'll get the same utility as if we really ate it. Great taste and no nutrition, while avoiding most of the poison. We do absorb or swallow some by accident, but a lot less, and surprisingly, we got full anyway, as we tired of chewing. The chewing practice. So don't just get our steps in, get our chewing reps in too. Set a rule I must follow. Don't let it ring hollow. Say I'm not gonna swallow, or in filth I will wallow. Like a wine taster, not gonna swallow. Anticipate and avoid. Look at our spittoon and be grateful the contents are not inside of us. Anticipate remorse. Okay, that is number 22, the second fractal of the ninth sphere. Anticipate remorse. That's about being able to the fourth fractal of the ninth sphere is about remorse for transgressions. So earlier in the ninth sphere, we learned about remorse, being remorseful for the transgressions we commit. Here at the second fractal, we are actually being able to anticipate the remorse. So we recognize that we're going to feel remorse about this at some time in the future, and so we don't even commit the act in the first place. Okay, so that is anticipate remorse, the second fractal of the ninth sphere. That's one of the 144 fractal faculties that you can get a list of if you'd like to click the link in the description and send it out to you for free. Meanwhile, you can also click the link, you can click the like button, and you can subscribe to the channel, and you can share the video with others. You can donate to me through Cash App or Venmo. That's also listed in the description. And you can come back tomorrow and check out my next video, which is on another mysterious one of the 144 fractal faculties. So come back tomorrow to find out what number we choose to cover for tomorrow. In the meanwhile, have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for checking out.